A trial is underway tonight in connection to the disappearance of Kristin Smart. This is a case that has captivated the country ever since the young college freshman mysteriously vanished in 1996. Her body has never been found, but prosecutors think they know who killed her. Paul Flores is believed to be the last person to see her alive, and now he has been charged in her death, along with his father, Ruben Flores, who allegedly helped hide her body. Correspondent Nancy Liu joining us live in Los Angeles tonight with the very latest on a much anticipated trial, especially for her family. Nancy.
Well, Marnie, in opening statements, prosecutors claim that Kristin Smart was too nice to her killer 26 years ago. That's alleged to be classmate Paul Flores, who is now standing trial alongside his father for her murder, even though Smart's body has never been found. Paul Flores was the last person known to be seen with fellow freshman Kristin Smart 26 years ago at Cal Poly. After walking her home from a party, Flores allegedly raped and killed the 19-year-old student, and his father, Ruben Flores, helped him dispose of her body.
We certainly believe that Mr. Flores' dorm room was the crime scene.
The father-son duo are accused of burying Smart behind the home of Ruben Flores and later moving her remains, which have never been found.
Forensic physical evidence was located. And yes, we believe it's linked to Kristin.
From the beginning, authorities have been scrutinized for not investigating Smart's disappearance sooner. It took campus police 4 days to look into her whereabouts, with detectives from the DA's office getting involved a week later when they questioned Paul Flores. By the time they searched his dorm room, he had already moved out and it had been cleaned by the university. He continued to change his story and plead the fifth.
He had a black eye, scratches on his hands and knees, and he told one story and then he admitted that was a lie and told another one.
Years later, Chris Lambert's true crime podcast, Your Own Backyard, renewed interest in the case and inspired witnesses to come forward.
In 2019, we interviewed several witnesses that had not been previously interviewed. Some of that information came to light through the podcast.
Also in court today, prosecutors revealed that Ruben Flores had been seen taking down missing posters featuring Kristin Smart, and he was heard saying disparaging things about her. The defense argued that there's no concrete evidence leading to what happened to Kristin Smart after that party. This trial is expected to last about 4 months. Marnie?
Wow, and nearly 3 decades later. All right, Nancy, thank you. I want to turn now to Rachel Fizet, a criminal defense attorney based in Los Angeles. Rachel, good to see you. You and I have talked about this case a number of times. How hard is it to try with no body and such a lack of physical evidence?
This is a tough case. This is a 26-year-old case that had a lot of police error, I would say, in the beginning. There was a lot overlooked. There was a lot not done. And there is a lot of circumstantial evidence that would point to Paul Flores and his dad, Ruben Flores, as being helpful in assisting hiding the body. But again, there is no body, there is old evidence, and there are a lot of holes.
Right. So really, it all hinges on circumstantial evidence. What types of witnesses in a case like this would you expect to be called to the stand?
I think you'll see people that have known Paul throughout time. I think you'll see people who were there at college at the time, that were at a party where they were last seen together. They left, they walked together. I think they will get the people that saw them. There is a witness that is in a foreign country that saw people arguing that would fit the description of them, who may be known as the last person to see her alive other than Paul Flores. There are sheriffs that had cadaver dogs that sniffed around. There is a lot of evidence that relates to cadaver dogs and the search. I think you'll see a lot of that. And then you'll see the evidence they have now, which is soil that has blood remains in it that was that came from Ruben Flores's old home. But again, it doesn't have the DNA because it's so old.
Right. And with these witnesses, I mean, we're talking about more than 25 years ago. So their account of what happened, what they may have seen, may be cloudy because so much time has passed. That adds another level of challenge and work for the prosecution.
I think there's a lot of challenge for the prosecution as it relates to the incident. I think they may attempt, but again, they may not get this in. They will call people that have known Paul Flores since that time to show that he has done other similar types of things or attempted to do sexual assaulting, that kind of thing, to show that he has propensity, but that might not come in. There's a decent chance that kind of evidence won't come in. The prosecution here has an uphill battle, even though Paul Flores has been the primary suspect for so many years.
And he denies it. He refused to give a deposition in 1997. What are the chances that he takes the stand in his own defense?
I think the chances are really low. I think this man and his family are well versed in the Fifth Amendment and what they do and don't have to say, as they have been fielding questions about this murder for 26 years.
Wow. We'll be watching it closely. Rachel Fizet, good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.